Hello and welcome to another Soul Chat with me, Angie Latham, and the lovely Hayden Crawford. Hayden, I'm just going to introduce you to everybody and anybody that doesn't know you, although I know that some people that are watching this will already know you and they will be excited as well about you being on. So you're based in Perth, Australia, but you are actually originally from the UK, which I've just found out, which is great. And you're a wellness coach and spiritual teacher. You're a numerologist, Reiki master, and a colour therapist, and you're also founder of the Dreamtime Academy. And the Dreamtime Academy, you offer personal readings, workshops, retreats as well, I believe, and some online courses. I've taken your level 1 colour therapy and we'll be taking the level 2 soon. I'm also in the middle of doing your Pythagorean Numerology course as well. I've been into numerology for quite a while, but I really wanted to learn about the grid system and the arrows of individuality, and I think we'll cover that in a bit as well, won't we? But so I'm really excited about all the things that you do, but I specifically want to talk to you about colour and colour therapy, and because you do the colour mirrors system, don't you? And that's working directly with colour, and really just describe to me sort of about the colour mirror system and how they can help people to sort of find their way in this, especially for those on a spiritual journey.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad that we're talking about colour therapy and the colour mirrors in particular, because it's my sort of penchant, so I absolutely love this system, and it was something that I only discovered about, I think, 3 years ago now, and I was looking for a modality to kind of tie everything that I'd learned up to that point together, and I'd sort of looked at Aurosoma, but then everything kept blocking me from doing Aurosoma.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was like, I always loved it, but it was like, no, I wasn't allowed to do it. And then all of a sudden, these little magical bottles, they appeared, and it was actually just somebody's live that I was watching on Facebook, and I was like, oh wow, looking cool, really cool. And so very, very quickly I got involved, and I actually went over to South Africa to train to become a teacher of the system with Melissa Jolly, who's the founder of the Colour Mirrors. And she developed this system since 2001. So it was channeled. The information that goes into this system was channeled through her. So it took a few years for the whole system, because there's 87 different dual coloured oil bottles and about 50 or 60 essence sprays as well. So it comprises of, the essence sprays as well, which they're all different colours. They all have a different keynote and frequency. So yeah, so I fell in love with this system, and the reason why it's so good is because it combines colour therapy with numerology. So it's all of that wisdom embedded in it. And it kind of unfolds the more that you use it, so it's almost like when you read a good deck of tarot, it's like when you first do a reading, it's like, oh, I'm not sure, if I'm really understanding this. And then, over the years, the stories of the cards start unfolding. It's the same with the mirrors, really. And over the last 3 years, I've really been able to kind of rediscover my multidimensional aspects, which has helped me to reconnect to the star system that my soul originated from after it left source consciousness, which was Andromeda, and also to be able to understand, during my clinical sessions, the patterns, beliefs, frozen emotions, behaviors that are going on with people, because the bottles really are, like the top fraction represents the conscious mind, and the bottom fraction is the subconscious mind. So it's just a really clear indication of what's going on with your clients, because straight away, what it is that they're dealing with. Yeah. But then people can bathe in them as well, so it's not just about the experience of feeling the remedies through the consultation, but it's also the after effects that the bottles have as well when you pour, because we encourage people to pour the 1 or 2 bottles that they most resonate with in their bath and submerge their bodies and allow the color frequencies to kind of just go into their cellular memory, which
Yeah.
will then clear the blockage associated with why they've come to see in the first place.
So I'm a hypnotherapist, and so I do, you know, past life regression work. So obviously I'm kind of used to you know, what the difference between the conscious and the unconscious. So the unconscious, you know, where we have all of those patterns and limited beliefs that we've picked up, you know, through our life's experience. And you've used the word frequency quite a lot in what you've just said. So for people that kind of are listening and thinking, well, what's all that about? What's color? What's frequency? You know, why does color work? I think it's kind of, for me personally, things like numerology, astrology, really started to make sense when I became a sound therapist, when I started training in sound therapy and started working with vibration, energy, frequency. I started to understand that everything in the universe is made of frequency and vibration and energy, and that we're all energy. You know, our thoughts are energy, our emotions are energy and vibration. So you start seeing things in a different way. And I always sort of I always describe it to some people as it's like Neo from the Matrix, you know, the film The Matrix, the original one, when he suddenly starts seeing everything in code. And you start seeing that everything actually is about frequency. So our lower emotions are just a different frequency from the higher emotions. And yeah, so how does color represent frequency in that way? It's
the language of light, you know, so colors and numbers and the alphabet, actually, they're all just frequencies of light. It's the same with sound healing, as you've just mentioned. So if you think about, like, color is our visible form of light. So, you know, we can see the spectrum, but we can't see ultraviolet or infrared, but we can see, you know, all the other colors. We can see it. We can perceive color as an actual thing, you know, it's a thing. So, you know, red is a very slow wavelength and frequency, and violet, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum, is very high vibration and frequency. So, you know, really the colors relate to the emotions, you know, and like patterns and all sorts of stuff, you know, so like violence and fears and safety and security on the planet, and then violet, you know, can hold on, can be grief, you know, as well. So it's almost like they are keynotes and frequencies. They each color, you know, it almost reveals the emotional patterns that are associated with those colors. And
so it's symbolizing a type of energy, isn't it? So, and actually we already know this, and we don't realize how much we use it already. And let's just take the color red, for instance. You know, so red, you know, it can mean danger. We use it for stop, don't go any further. But also it's a very grounding color, isn't it? So you need that. And the base chakra is represented by the color red. So it's kind of, I suppose, like everything, there's a duality, isn't there, in the colors, that it can, you know, it has a lower and a higher vibration within that pattern and within that color. So I find it really exciting when we start looking at the universe in terms of frequency and energy and vibration. Then all of these different languages, such as numerology, because I poo-pooed numerology for a long time, until again I became a sound therapist and realized that the numbers were just a representation of a certain energy and frequency. And again, we you know, we often think of the obvious one, which is number one, isn't it? The arrowhead, the sort of, you know, the go, the action, the sort of like, you know, running ahead and being the individual and wanting to be number one, wanting to stand up on the podium and be seen. So colors also relate to that, don't they? So
well, it's interesting. Yeah, you should mention the number one, because like in the color mirror system, that is number one. This is the first bottle that came in, and it's called the sun. So it is very much, you know, about I want to be seen, you know, because the sun is the biggest planet in our solar system, isn't it? And you know, yellow is all about the ego as well. So you're right, you know, the colors do have both positive and negative connotations, you know. So you can, you know, like joy is the highest expression of yellow, which is like, oh, you know, happy days, laughter, fun. But then fear is the lowest expression of yellow. So
I always think of the lower expression of yellow being kind of jealousy as well. Is that kind of that's intuitive to me, that can be quite jealous and critical?
It's more green, like green with envy.
Oh, green with envy, of course, yes.
Yeah, green and olive as well. So those two colours often, sort of bring up those emotions because they're heart-related energies that can be healed.
So a heart, so you'd say, so a heart blockage would turn, I mean, that is envy, isn't it? It's a blockage of the heart. Yeah.
But so also, like olive as well, like olive green is a mixture between yellow and green. Okay, so that's that beautiful kind of like, it's almost like a lime green color. And so that carries the information of the heart and the solar plexus. So, in some ways, there is that, the aspect, but the shadow pattern of olive green is envy. That's the shadow that needs to be worked on within that particular color. So what we find is that the complementary color to each of the colors becomes the antidote to the issues. So for example, if it was yellow, the opposite to yellow is violet. So violet is the exact opposite color to yellow. So often we use violet energy to be able to help with like depression, because obviously, sad and depression come up in yellow as well. And violet helps us reconnect to the spirit and move away from ego. So that's how we can move forward with depression a lot of the time. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing that that you're sat there in yellow, and I'm sat here in my turquoise, which I wear 80% of the time. Occasionally, I get a bit of purple in there.
Which is
yes, we are.
and you know what this is? This is trust. And that's interesting because you were just telling me that little story about what you found on your car seat.
Yeah,
and it was the little faith card. Yeah. So it's trust. So what we're saying here is that, the message that we're delivering is, is trust, just trust what we're saying, And
and I have to say that I am completely out of my comfort zone doing these soul chats and interviews, but it's something that I feel compelled to do. So I know that that's coming from a higher place, from my higher self or soul or whatever, however you want to view it. Whereas, the human part of me, the conscious ego part of me is still very like, it wants to kind of like hide away behind the sofa, really. I don't want to put myself out there. So there's this real kind of like dichotomy within me, which is interesting because I'm a life path 11, aren't I? And so I've got that in my chart anyway, and we'll come on to that as well in a bit. So I was saying to you earlier before we started recording that whenever I see you on Facebook, because you do a lot of lives on Facebook, don't you? And I'll put your Facebook link in the information below when I post this video, and you always come across as such a sunny person. So I just love it when you're wearing yellow as well, because you just represent the sunshine to me. And so just talk a little bit about you being there in yellow and me being here in turquoise, and that's sort of what's the vibration of turquoise and the vibration of yellow, just as an example for people with the colors.
Yeah, okay. So turquoise is about trust. Okay. So turquoise is that Aquarian wisdom. It's like that Aquarian energy, the wisdom of the whales and dolphins. It can relate to technology as well, but it's kind of upper heart related energy, so it's it's where green and blue kind of merge together. So blue is the throat and green is the heart.
Oh, cool.
So it really helps people with sort of communicating their heartfelt truths. And of course, this is also the color of the spiritual teacher as well. So, a lot of people that gravitate towards the color turquoise, and actually in the color mirror system, there's more bottles that have turquoise energy or frequency within them than any other color. And because it also relates to Atlantis as well. So Atlantis was allegedly a mythical city that disappeared underneath a tidal wave, many, many moons ago. But there's more and more evidence now that Atlantis actually did exist, and it represented a culture of a civilization, of people that already existed within higher dimensional realms. So, anything from fifth dimension upwards.
Mm.
But of course, then they abused the technology and power, and they fell through, down into the third dimension. So that's how we kind of evolved as a human race. The survivors of Atlantis ended up going to ancient Egypt, and of course everything that happened there within Egypt. But the wisdom actually that's embedded within the color mirrors dates right back to Atlantis. Because if you think about Pythagorean numerology as well, Pythagoras just readopted the wisdom from Atlantis, because they used numerology in the construction of the pyramids.
Yes.
As well. So, this is
and possibly sound.
Well, think about where the Atlanteans came from. Absolutely sound. But the Atlanteans were seeded by the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, and the Syrians, and the Andromedans. So they were like a concoction. They were sort of genetically engineered, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. And then seeded, they seeded the first civilizations on this planet. So that's turquoise. That's what you get from turquoise. It's so rich in subconscious mysteries, magic, illusions, and faith.
It's interesting what you said there, because I've got my last soul chat, I was talking to an astrologer, and she was working out my north and south nodes. So the north node of fate, which is in Aquarius for me. So, that is my soul's direction in this life, is to go towards that Aquarian, knowledge and expression. So that's that tallies up with what you've just said. And again, this feeling that I need to speak, I need to communicate in some way. And that to me has been one of the beauties of lockdown, because I can't do any of my sound work. So it's really I've been pushed into a different direction. And if I'd have sat down a year ago and said that in a year's time, you'll be doing Zoom interviews online, and I just wouldn't have believed you. So, but I think 2020 has been such a rapid upshift for many people. And I suppose this brings us into this free will choice that we have as humans when we go into adversity is, do we use it as a way of learning and growing and expanding, or do we kind of like just sit there in victim consciousness and woe is me? And that's absolutely fine to go through, troughs and peaks of that. And I definitely had my sort of dark shadow days, weeks, even a couple of months last year. But sooner or later, the teacher steps in, I think, and we start to think, well, how can I use this to grow? How can I use this to push forward and expand? So, and
you know what, you mentioned a really interesting key word there, expansion. Okay, when we're talking about turquoise. Now, the complementary color to turquoise is coral, because coral sits underneath the turquoise ocean. Now, coral energy is this color here. Oh, sorry, this one here. This is coral. Okay, so it's a mixture between pink with a bit of yellow in it. So it's where, unconditional love and a bit of joy mixed together to create this color. It's about expansion. So you're right. So sometimes, when we go through those experiences that you've just talked about, where you're kind of like, your soul is saying, okay, I've got to be visible now instead of hiding away, and it wants expansion. So so actually the eye, when it sees turquoise, is really seeing coral. Okay, and that's Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, so it wants expansion. So it's all about self-acceptance. It's about self-acceptance. The more you can accept yourself, the truth of who you are, the more your abundant and enriched your life will become.
Yeah. And I think that the more magical life gets as well, and the more synchronicities come in, and and it just, life starts to unfold, and you start to understand how you co-create with the universe, and you're not anymore a victim of it. So life is happening through us and not to us, is my favorite. Anne Perry would say. And so I'm kind of like interested in how did you find yourself on this path, and did you have a sort of an awakening? Was there a kind of a period in your life where the soul stepped in and said, you know what, you're not going where I want to go, and kind of there's that wrecking ball, isn't there, that comes in and sort of kicks us up our butt. Did you have one of those kind of experiences?
I really did, yeah. So I had a midlife awakening. Other people say, oh, you had a nervous breakdown, but it wasn't as severe as that. But I definitely had a midlife awakening. I was working in the corporate IT recruitment world, and I had done for about 15 years in England and in Australia when we first emigrated. And I was good at it, but I didn't ever love it. And I was getting more and more angry and felt like I was living somebody else's life. So during my personal year cycle 7, which is, it's known as a Mack truck year, so it's where if your soul is off track,
I'm in one of those at the moment.
I know you are. I know, I did notice that.
Yeah.
But they can be quite challenging years. So my midlife awakening happened during my personal year cycle 7. That's where we sold the house, moved down south, and I had to reinvent myself. I was being guided to do it. And it was funny because in the same way that you found your little card on your passenger seat, I was going for a walk around King's Park in Perth one day, because I always used to do that just to get out of the office. And one day I was walking across the grass and I looked down and I could see 2 cards, playing cards, just regular playing cards in front of me. One was the King of Hearts and the other one was like, it was the 5 of clubs or the 4 of clubs or something. And I just remember thinking, because my gran always used to say to me when I was growing up, oh, you're the Jack of Hearts, and then, so I thought, well, wait a minute. So this King of Hearts is probably me as a man. So I was like, okay, so this is a message for me. So I Googled it, when I got back to the office, and I was like, oh shit, this is like going to be a bad time. It's like everything was going to break down around me. The job that I had was going to be lost, and everything was like, all the people that I was familiar with were all going to go. And I was like, oh my God, no. And sure enough, within about 6 months, everything had been taken away. I like the company had folded that I was working for. I found, and I was forced into making a decision and choosing to follow what I really wanted to do, which I always kind of knew that I wanted to work with color, but I didn't really know what it meant. I used to read cards in my early 20s. My gran was quite psychic, so I used to read cards and stuff like that with her when I was a kid. So it was always there, but I'd kind of neglected those aspects. And I'd done Reiki and stuff like that, but I'd only got to level 2 and I hadn't really done anything with it. So, so when that awakening happened, it was like, I just remember lying there in bed, and I was like, okay, so somebody said to me, oh, ask the question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? So I was going, well, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What would I do? What would I do? And I just kind of went inwards, and I got this voice. It said, oh, work with color. So I was like, oh, what does that even mean? So I thought that I was being guided to become a painter. So I started putting an exhibition together when we moved down to the Southwest, which is like an artist's colony, really. And nobody ended up buying my paintings. I was like, I didn't even like the paintings that I was doing. So I was like, no, it can't be this. So it took a while before the color mirrors actually found me. But when it did, it was like a recognition, and I wasn't stopped from studying the course. It was just, everything was just like kind of handed to me on a plate, and it was like there. So
I think that's an important point to remember, that when we are doing what our soul wants to do, then it is made easy, isn't it? It's and when we're going down the wrong path, we do get those obstacles, we do get those stop signs, and things become really hard, like kind of wading upstream against the tide. Whereas when you're in alignment with your soul, everything is downstream and you're just being taken. And it is amazing how the right people, the right circumstances, the money will flow in. If you've got a course and you're supposed to take it, that money will show up. If but it's about trust and surrender, isn't it? Which we're going back to the turquoise and the yellow here. So it's it is about surrendering and trusting that you do have those answers inside you, and to get our kind of ego mind out of the way, because I mean, it must have, to be told sort of work with color. I mean, how would you even think that you could make it? Because I think we're about the same age, aren't we? I'm 49. How old are you, Hayden?
I'm 40. I was born in 72. So
Oh, yeah, so I'm 71. Yeah.
yeah.
So we're definitely from that generation where creativity and making money from being creative in any way, shape or form, it just wasn't valued. I don't know whether it's different now in the school system, but certainly it wasn't valued when I was there. And if you showed any interest in going down that creative route, then you were kind of discouraged. It was kind of not seen as something that you could make a career or a good living out of. And that's one of the limited beliefs that I've really had to unpack over my lifetime. And if somebody had said to me, back in sort of 2017, when I started training as a sound therapist, you can make better money, playing gongs and singing bowls for people than you can in the NHS, which is when I was working at the time, then I would never have believed them, because it seems so sort of unlikely that you could. But actually, my belief now is, if you're following your own joy, following your bliss, if you're doing if you can find something where you're being of service to others and actually enjoying it from the heart, rather than the head saying, oh, it's a good salary, it's a good, I get this, that and the other through it. But if you're going from the heart, then everything kind of magically just lines up for you. And of course, it doesn't mean that you don't go through your challenges, because we're human, and that's part of the human journey. But I've definitely found that when you're in alignment with your heart rather than the ego mind, then things start to flow, synchronicity starts to come in, and everything is just much easier. So you start to go through your life with sort of far more grace and ease.
And you really do. And it's interesting because, you're right. It's like when you follow the heart, which is turquoise, and not the mind, the intellect or the analytical side, which is yellow. It does, it unfolds. It's almost like all you have to do, it's like your dominant intention just needs to be, look for things that make you feel good. That's what we should be taught at school.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Isn't it?
Because everybody that is successful in life, I mean, really successful, as in doing what they love and are successful by doing it, it's because they followed their heart, they followed their calling. And and I think there's with where we are going as a planet at the moment, with the rising in consciousness and the raising in frequency, it is really pushing people to follow their heart rather than what we've been taught in the head. And of course, the ego mind, the conscious mind, that's it's fine, it has its place. We need it for discernment, we need it to keep us safe, we need it from kind of just rushing out, without thinking things through properly. But I think where we've gone wrong as a society is that we go through the head first rather than through the heart first. So getting aligned with the heart then brings you to the higher mind, where you can let go of those limiting beliefs and those things that you've taken on from other people that aren't actually true. And we pick that up from parents, from the school system, from our culture, from our religion, and la-di-da-di-da. So when somebody comes to you for a colour reading, just take me sort of through what happens when somebody sort of, rocks up and says, tell me about my colours. How can you help me?
Okay, so all of my sessions now are done via Zoom. I unless we're doing a retreat, so if I'm doing retreats, then it's very much a dynamic environment where people are engaging with the bottles and using them that way. But really, dynamic reading is the best way to do the colour mirrors, in my opinion. I mean, there are lots of different methods to use the bottles, but I ask questions and then get people to select bottles in as an intuitive response to the question. So the first question would be, well, where you're at in your life right now. The second one would be, what do you want your life to look like? And then the third question might be, well, what does your life look like if your current set of issues and challenges has been resolved? And then the fourth question might be, what action steps can you take to get you from where you are now to where you want to be? And then finally, it would be something like, oh, what are your biggest obstacles or challenges that are blocking you from getting there? And of course, then you've got all the information that you need. I also would then get their date of birth, so I'd be able to see all of their personality traits and strengths and weaknesses. And it's almost like a roadmap, as to what the best methods are. And then I just take them through a deep hypnotic state, like a guided inner journey to help them to either do the inner child work or the shadow work, depending on what needs to take place. A lot of the time it's just forgiveness.
Yes.
And then help them to let go. And then the icing on the cake really is I say, okay, so out of the bottles that you've selected today, which one did you most feel a connection with? And they might go, oh, it was like the moon bottle, number 2. And so I would encourage them to purchase the bottle and then bathe in it, because that will take the body where the soul wants it to go.
Okay, yeah, okay. So when you're asking these questions and then asking people to pick the colours, what exactly is going on there? Why are they picking certain colours? And
well, again, a lot of the time people might be aiming towards picking a particular bottle and then find themselves picking a completely different one.
Yeah, so they're drawn to something else. Yeah,
they're guided away, so a lot of the time people are like scared that when they have a session they might just pick all their favorite color, like, oh, my favorite color is orange, so I'm just going to pick all the orange bottles. And it's not like that at all. It's kind of like you just ask them to let go of any preconceived ideas about anything and just go with intuition, so really trust their intuition, which bottles they choose. And it's incredible, absolutely every time. It's like the information that comes through. I mean, it helps people to release the tears. The awareness is probably the key. It's bringing awareness into these old patterns, beliefs, behaviors, frozen emotions that have been keeping people stuck for so long because they're unaware of them. Yes. And a lot of them, as you said before, they've been indoctrinated into us by our parents, our teachers, even our ancestral lineage and our even past life stuff as well. We come in, for example, like if people pick like the yellow and green bottle combinations, this relates to quite a difficult past life period of time, which is like the persecutions and stuff like that, the cathars, so it was like they come in with that all of that stuff, that they believe that they can't be spiritual and wealthy, or
yes,
they get their authentic power because they were killed because of that in the past. They'd found a way of becoming an alchemist.
Do you find that a lot, especially with women, because you work predominantly with women, and you're passionate about helping women, and I mean in my work, the people that I work with, and including myself, the past life stuff about persecution and judgment is something that comes up again and again and again, and especially if people are in this life therapists, light workers, way showers, because it's not just like you've been dropped on the planet to do that. We've been doing it for lifetimes. So of course we've had those lifetimes where we've been imprisoned or burnt at the stake or persecuted, and so that is an energetic frequency that then gets stored in our field. And when I do past life regression with people, that is what they're picking up. Their higher self will show them that in this life their problems about speaking out or moving forward are often tied to where they've been persecuted before in past lives. And what's happening is when something happens in this life, it's like a tuning fork. So you kind of strike that tuning fork, and anywhere else in your field where that same frequency is will start to vibrate. And this is what fascinates me about quantum healing, is that you can heal it now, right now, in this moment, and it will stop everywhere else in your field that it's vibrating. And I think that's magical. And this is what quantum science and quantum living is going towards, isn't it? Is sound, energy, vibration, and how we use it to heal ourselves and to expand into a kind of like wider consciousness of the universe. So we're not just these isolated little bodies moving around on planet Earth, but we are actually part of this whole cosmos. We're part of the web, we're part of the tapestry, and it's all energetic. So it's really exciting that things like color and sound, is really kind of becoming popular. And it's kind of like it's chicken or the egg, isn't it? It's kind of like, is the raising consciousness bringing about people's, people are being more drawn to these sort of things, or are people being drawn to these sort of things, raising their consciousness? And it's a bit of both, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah, because I mean, as you just said, we are ancient immortal beings of light, living out temporary human experiences. So the power is in the now moment. And of course, in the now moment, we can heal past, present, future, because none of it actually exists anyway, because it's all now.
Yes.
We know that tomorrow, never comes, and yesterday doesn't exist. So we're always in the now moment. So of course, our power's in the now moment. So we can go down our timeline to any part of our history, or and we can clear and transmute that old stuff. So it is magic. You're right. It is alchemy, and magic is exactly what Einstein predicted that was going to happen. So nobody wants pharmaceuticals, mainstream medicine. Obviously, it's got its place with surgery and stuff like that, but nobody wants to pop a pill to be able to kind of resolve an issue, because we know that all it does is suppress, and it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. So color, sound, and numbers does,
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
So it goes like that, right? You've got that issue, and it goes, okay, pick it out and go, whack, gone,
And they are really the keys to the universe, aren't they? And I just find it a most exciting time to be alive, even though we've got all this kind of outside almost control and contraction going on. But it's almost like we're shedding a skin. We're shedding the skin of the last sort of couple of thousand years. And this is, again, it's seen in astrology and numerology, it's playing out. And that's what I find is exciting, is that wherever I look, it's the same message. The old is going, and the new is sort of coming in at a real quick pace now. On a planetary scale. So it's not just pockets of people around the world now going through this. It's kind of, we're doing it at a planetary scale, which kind of leads me on to our sort of place in the galaxy, really, and our galactic heritage. So again, in my work, I've found that I work predominantly with people that come to me for past life regression. And yeah, they may go into a sort of a past Earth life, but more and more people are ending off planet, and they're saying that they're from the Pleiades or from Arcturus or Sirius. And what is that all about, Hayden? Because you are a bit of a sort of expert on star seeds and galactic heritage, aren't you?
Well, I think it came about after my own Andromedan awakening. Again, it was about 3 years ago now, and I was finding it difficult sleeping at night. So we'd moved down to the southwest, and like the bedroom that we had was strange. I don't know what was going on in there, but it kept me awake. And I just remember one night I was lying there and I was going, oh my God, what is going on? I was like, I really need to get some sleep. And I was like, I just found myself asking the question, like, where am I from? And I wasn't really expecting to get anything back, and I don't even know why I was asking that question either. But it was like, I sort of, it wasn't even a voice, but it was like Andromeda sort of came in, and it was like, oh God, that's a strange word. I just remember feeling that and not even writing it down, but that was sort of in a lucid dream for the rest of the night, trying to keep hold of that word. And I was like, okay, so the next day I Googled it. I literally just put Andromeda into Google, and it was like, all of a sudden it took me to this star constellation 22 million light years away from planet Earth. And then I started researching the traits of the Andromedan starseeds, and I found that it was exactly the work that I was doing, because the Andromedans come in because they want to teach people freedom, and they do that through helping them to rediscover their inner wisdom. So that's how they get that sense of freedom, but also self-love and self-confidence. So it was those three aspects that the Andromedans are here to do. So I was like, oh my God, this is so bang on. And, and it's like, okay, so there's definitely something in this. It's just strange, because I thought it was something to do with Doctor Who when I first heard the word, Andromeda. I was like, what is that? It sounds like a Dalek or something. Yeah. So like over the years, I created loads of videos, and like my YouTube channel now has got over 4,000 subscribers, and I created videos that really explore the different star systems and what it is to be a starseed. Because a starseed basically is somebody who's human by birth and by DNA, but their soul comes in from one of the different star systems. So whether that's the Pleiades or Arcturus or, Orion or wherever. And actually, comes into kind of fulfill a mission. The mission really is to help raise the frequency of the planet as we move towards the golden age of Aquarius. So that's it, that's the job really. And we're all volunteers. So it was actually Dolores Cannon that inspired a wave of activity across the planet with her QHHT,
yes.
Quantum Hypnosis Healing Technique. And I think it's fantastic because the techniques that, she developed are very easy to bring into any wellness practice. And actually, people are all starting to say the same thing. So, that they heard the Earth was in trouble and they needed to volunteer to come in and help. And this all started
Second waiver.
I was a second waiver as well. Me and you, we're beta generation indigos. The alpha generation came in sort of in the 1950s, because the bomb went off in Hiroshima and obviously the Earth was in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And then the first wave had the most difficult time of it, and a lot of them committed suicide. But you and I, we came in as beta generation indigos, and we're here to kind of pave the way and to be, sort of like pioneers, really, I guess, in helping people to wake up. So it is happening at a collective level. Like the world is going through this shift. Some people are still sleeping because they're just ignoring all of that. Yeah. But Dolores Cannon, her book series called The Convoluted Universe is fascinating to observe. And I think that the reason why people are starting to, kind of like have those experiences during these deep hypnotic, it's almost like a somnambulistic brainwave state that you're taking people into, is because it's so important for them to be able to remember that they've chosen, their soul has chosen this experience.
Yes.
And then when they realize that it's not, anything is just by default, you're not just plonked on the earth out of, like it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
You've chosen, so get on with the work, really.
Yes. And it's funny because you've
sense of purpose.
You've mentioned a couple of times, you've said about 3 years ago. So that's around about 2017, isn't it? Which was a huge year for me. I completely changed direction. Although I've always been spiritual and I've always been on a spiritual path, something happened in 2017 where I was just kicked up the butt and put on the train, if you like. It was kind of like, no more messing around on the station. You've got to get on the train because it is leaving now. And the last 3 years, it's easy to look back in hindsight, isn't it? But looking at what I've been through and what I've learned in the last 3 years since 2017 prepared me to go through 2020. And I am so much more on mission and on path than I ever have done in my 49 years. And it's really interesting that so many people that I talk to that are now feeling like they're on their mission and doing what they're supposed to be doing here had that big shift around 2016, 2017. So you're another one who's kind of like who's flagged that up. And it's and that's the thing, it's kind of like when, like you said, when you start hearing the same thing over and over again from different people in different ways, some under hypnosis, some, having lucid dreams, however that information is coming to you, it's like all these little alarm bells went off in so many people. And I'm seeing more alarm bells going off as everybody's kind of like starting to question their reality, starting to question where we come from. And I think it's worth saying for anybody that's still watching and going, starseeds, galactic heritage, that's rubbish, what a load of woo-woo. But then I would say, well, most people in the world believe that there's a heaven, that believe that there's something else beyond your physical body, the spirit realm, God, whatever that is. But most people believe that there's a higher power, there's something outside of our physical body. So really, is it that much of a leap to think that actually it's not about we come to earth and then we go to heaven, but there may be all these other choices and experiences in between that. So again, it's kind of like as it's coming more and more into our consciousness. I mean, 3 years ago, if you'd have talked to me about, star seeds and galactic heritage, I'd have thought, off your rocker. And now it's just normal. It's just normal for me to talk that way. And I find that really interesting because I am a Virgo. I am very analytical. I'm very logical. So, and how spirit has had to work with me is that they give me the experience first, and then I have to go and research what is that all about. A bit like with you with the Andromeda, and then you had to go and Google it, because if it happened the other way round, and this happens with Dolores Cannon as well, is that if I'd have read her books first, I'd have just thought, oh, well, that's something I've picked up from a book or something that I've thought was, interesting, and I want to be a Pleiadian or whatever. But because I had the information first, I had these dreams where a Pleiadian came to me and we kind of connected with the root chakra and the heart chakra. And it was all around the same time as going into sound. And of course, later on, I discovered that the Pleiades, where, it's all about blue, the vibration of blue and turquoise, and also that the Pleiadians work with tone and sound. So, duh. Yeah. So it's obvious why I am, aligned with them. But that the experience had to come first before I went and read up about it. So that
and I bet you felt it in your heart, didn't you?
Yes.
You felt it, the truth in your heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So unless you have that, it's almost like it's a feeling that you get. And, for me, I knew nothing about it as well. Like I had no clue. And actually, I tell a lot, my sister about a year before had sent me a link through Facebook. And I read like the first 2 sentences about it. And I just was like, what a load of rubbish. Like, Becky, what are you thinking?
Yes.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, this experience with the Andromedans, and it was like, right, okay. So now it's like, yeah, I don't even question it anymore. It's my truth, and I actually think it's more ludicrous to presume that we, are as came from monkeys. It's just like, how the hell is that possible?
And that we're the only sort of intelligent life anywhere. And I mean, this is such a vast subject. We could go on about it forever, couldn't we? But do you so you've got my date of birth there. So should we put some of this to the test and see what you come up with, and see if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
You actually are, Angie. So we can see that you were born on the 11th of September 1971. All right. So what we do is we transfer those numbers from the date that your soul chose to come to the planet into what's called a birth chart. So it's a bit like playing noughts and crosses, but with numbers. And we can see, first of all, actually, what's interesting about your chart is that you've got a lot of 11 energy. Now, the 11 is a master number, and the 11s are here to guide humanity forward into the new emerging golden age. Okay, so that you're perfectly on track. So the 11 in the color mirrors system is this bottle here, which is, it looks like black over clear, but it's actually, if you look closely, it's like deep magenta. Over clear. So it's magenta is the color of the soul, and clear is the color of source consciousness. So it's only an illusion that those two things are separate, because actually it's the same thing, the soul and source, it's the same thing. So for you, that the 11s, they have to illuminate their shadows, so they have to shine light into their shadows, learn to love their shadows, release the guilt, forgive themselves, so that they can be the light bearer that they came here to be. All right. So you're very sensitive and intuitive, because the 11 carries the vibration of the 2, and the 2 is feminine, intuitive and sensitive. So you've got that as a major aspect, because it's your day number and your ruling number. But what's even more interesting is, and I work with a lot of women who whose numbers total 29 and then reduce to the 11. So this is the 29 energy.
There's my blue.
It is. It's called, but this one's called Grace Under Pressure. So this one is very deep turquoise. It's the same color that you're wearing over deep magenta. And bottle 29 is called Grace Under Pressure because it's the energy of the Olympic spiritual athlete. So your soul has chosen to have a particularly difficult life experience for swift evolution of your soul. All right. So it wanted to kind of like have this kind of like, you know, sort of
so it's spiritual
amazing
boot camp.
awakening. It's like a spiritual boot camp. Totally. It really is, you know. And so your soul chose that. But then again, you're in your year cycle 7, which is, you know, if you're not on track, it can be a difficult year like it was for me. It's probably going to be okay for you because you are living your purpose. But it's lessons to be learned, and it's exploration of the subconscious. The 7 is Neptune energy, which is the Roman god of the sea. So it's that Atlantean wisdom. So you get to explore the deeper meaning behind life and learn, and also to teach as well. So a lot of people are called to teach during their 7 years as well. You've also got these 2 arrows. Now, these are classed as negative arrows within your birth chart. The first one, which is the absence of the 4, 5, and 6, is called the arrow of frustration. So it means difficulties for you during childhood. Mum and dad may be separated, or there was ill health or sibling rivalry, but also it can knock on into relationship difficulties as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And this one is the arrow of hypersensitivity, which is the lack of the 2, 5, and 8. Now, this means that you've actually got a weak soul protection, so you get easily hurt. Okay, so it's a hypersensitive aspect to you. So sometimes you can isolate yourself, maybe even become a bit of a hermit. You've got the 4 wands, which, you know, again, can create problems with verbal self-expression, or it's your male energy, which is isolating itself. So it's almost like you want to retreat from the world because you get so easily hurt. If somebody said something awful to you, you'd be like, oh my God, you know, and then it will like trigger all of that self-doubt and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, my sensitivity has been, it's like we were talking earlier about the duality, because the hypersensitivity has been, you know, it's been my greatest struggle, but also it's my greatest strength as well. And it's so it's been a ongoing journey about how to use that sensitivity and that empathy in a positive way, rather than a kind of, you know, like you said, wanting to kind of retreat and just kind of pull the duvet over my head kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, that's it, because, you know, when you have no numbers on your soul plane like that, you know, the absence of the 2, the 5, and the 8, they are all soul numbers. Okay, they're on the soul plane, so they relate to the emotions. It just means that it needs rebalancing. So you need to bring color energy into the chart, and turquoise is the right color to bring in.
Yeah,
green, pink, turquoise, they're the energies, and they're the starseed colors. You know, if you think about, like, the star seeds are always connected to turquoise and pale pink and pale lilac. It's heart related energies. You see, that's why the star seeds and you know, the Galactic Federation of Light are kind of like communicating those via experiences, you know, during our dreamtime state. So they're trying to give us information to help us to step up and help people to open their hearts, really. Because we've been too long in our yellow, in our ego, and our yellow and our fear. And it's like, you know, the media and the government and everything, you know, is just basically trying to keep us in fear, because it can control us then. But if we go into our hearts, we can be like, oh, it's fine. We can go into our high vibrational states of being, like we did back in times of Atlantis.
Yes. And I mean, that's perfect, really, because that's how I've managed to turn my sensitivity into a strength, is by learning how to be heart-centered, because I couldn't do it in the head. Whenever I was in the head, that brings on almost a paranoia, you know, so criticism, judgment of myself and others, paranoia. And I kind of used to have a real problems knowing where my paranoia ended and my intuition started, and they'd be mixed up. But when you go into the heart first, you don't get that paranoia, you just get the intuition. So that I had this huge heart opening in 2017, which came from, you know, difficult circumstances that I was in. But again, it's kind of like, you can look back at it now and see that was my soul really cracking that egg open. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. So that's so to see that in my chart, and that you can see that in my chart, is kind of validation that this kind of stuff works, doesn't it, really?
It is. It's the proof.
Yeah,
it's proof, and it never fails either. You know, so I do a lot of live readings on Facebook and on YouTube and things like that, and I just go into the wisdom of the numbers, because it is the language of light. So I trust it 100%. So I never doubt, like when like you were saying, that sort of almost like that sort of dichotomy or that sort of conflict that goes on between intuition and paranoia. And I think that numbers help you to step out of that if you haven't got another vehicle, because you can rely upon the information and it's always accurate. I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of these readings now, and I've never had anyone go, oh, what a load of crap. They never have.
Yes. And I mean, you did actually, you might not remember, but I was on one of your lives once about 6 months ago, and you did my, just a quick kind of, and it was so accurate, and I shared it to my Facebook wall, and everybody that watched it said, oh my God, that was so true, that really sort of got you. And you didn't know me at all. And so it confirms to me, it validates things to me that this stuff is real, it does work, and that we just need to learn the language. And so for anybody that kind of that's watching, how can you easily bring color into your everyday life? I mean, we're kind of wearing our colors, aren't we? And you get a lot of people just wearing very black or gray, or so how would it help them to bring sort of like the color into their life?
Well, it's interesting because black is always associated with like hiding, but also, it can be quite a grounding and powerful color as well. Like I wear black when I go to the gym, and I feel like it helps me step into my power, but a lot of people hide behind it. So yeah, clothing is a really great way to bring color into your life, because remember, we are just energy. Everything is energy. So you're just bringing that into your energetic system, your electromagnetic energy system, and it is affecting your mood. So, we can either do that. We can eat the rainbow as well, so steering away from like processed beige food. We all know that that's not good for us now, don't we? No more bangers and mash, better off like, eat the rainbow, have some raspberries, have some bananas, have some blueberries, bring in leafy green vegetables. That's what keeps us healthy. Yeah. So it's okay. So we can bring it in that way. Crystals are another beautiful way. Elixirs like color mirrors, you could flowers, flower essences are sensational. Like, the wealth of information that comes through the doctrine of signatures within the Australian bush flowers blows your mind, and again, it's just another example of nature communicating through pantomime, to tell us what it is that we need. And it does it through numerology, like the number of petals, the color of the flowers. So, there's never a shortage of ways in which that you can use colored light frequencies, Lucia light systems. We use all of those in our retreats that we run, and they basically can change the energy of the brain. Will elevate you into the highest frequency of existence, and then you can exist on the oversoul of the planet and remain on your eagle's perch and not be affected by all the hearsay and all the media garbage that's trying to keep you feeling fearful. We can remain on the oversoul and experience heaven on earth.
Yes. And that's really where we're heading, isn't it? It's embodying, because I think in the sort of 80s, 90s, when I was, in my late teens, early 20s, there was a lot of spiritual practices, a lot of spiritual people trying to kind of escape outwards. So, either with drugs or kind of meditation, but they would try, it's almost like, I don't want to be here. I don't feel safe being in the body. So I want to escape somewhere else. And really, that's not the true message of as far as I'm concerned, of this age. It's about embodying heaven into earth, and bringing that consciousness down and into the planet and into our bodies, and then living on the earth as it was always meant to be, this beautiful planet of co-creation. Yeah. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So we're kind of like, we're kind of coming to the end of the interview, although I could talk to you all day about this. And but just tell me a bit about how people can get hold of you, and just tell me all the different services that you're offering at the moment.
Okay. So the Dreamtime Academy, we host online courses. So I teach numerology levels 1, 2, and 3. I teach the color mirrors Practitioner course as well. So this amazing ancient secret system, I teach that as self-paced online course through video tutorials, home play sheets, and then fortnightly Zoom catch-ups with me so I can track your progress. So that's an amazing journey to go on. We run retreats as well. So, you know, we've got an incredible accommodation that's just up the road from where we live. And it's, you know, surrounded by nature, and it's like a boutique hotel. And my husband cooks all the soulful food, you know, so we're eating the rainbow, and I'm going through, you know, sort of it's the wisdom with them, you know, so the higher learnings and the secret ancient teachings through the color mirrors and numerology. And also, you know, I run workshops as well. So, you know, running workshops in Perth. So, you know, it's really a combination. People are preferring at the moment to learn through Zoom because of COVID, it changed the landscape of things. And I think people just want to be in the comfort of their own home, and, you know, to get a recording of their Zoom session and then learn that way with an ebook or something like that. I just think that we're evolving as a human race as to how we prefer to consume information.
And it's great to, from my point of view, it's, I mean, obviously I can't, you know, I'm in England, so, you know, I can't come personally, but also it's like, I like to replay things and go back over things, and so and sometimes you take in different information depending on how you're feeling that day, isn't it? So it's a great way of just having it to go, I remember, what did that say about this number or this color, and then you can go back and also for creatives like I am, I'm a visual and an audio learner, so I learn far quicker and far better by watching you teaching, you know, either in person or on Zoom, than I would if you did a book and I sat there and tried to read it through that. So it's recognizing that difference that we all learn and taking information as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's why I think it's important to have like an ebook that accompanies the videos for people that learn in that way.
Yeah.
But also, you know, there's a heap load of free information as well on my YouTube channel, which is like, you just type in Dreamtime with a double A, Dreamtime Academy in YouTube, and then there's like over 200 free videos that I've created over the past 3 or 4 years, which explores all sorts of personal development as well as the starseed stuff. So that's a really great tool. My website, dreamtimeacademy.com.au, and then the learning portal, which is dreamtimeacademy.com, which, you know, hosts all of the courses. So, you know, there's really a myriad of ways in which people can work with me. If it's just a consultation that they want with the color mirrors to work through some personal stuff, then they can do that. I've got a 12-week wellness journey as well, which is called Your True Colors, which takes you through the chakra system. Or if you don't want to do a whole 12 weeks, you can just do the first 4 weeks of that, which is called Release, which works on your red, orange, and yellow energy. So it's really just been something that, you know, has kind of happened step by step. You know, I didn't ever set out for this to happen when I first went through that midlife awakening, seeing those 2 cards, you know, on the field as I walked around King's Park. But I just have taken in the inspired action that them upstairs are getting me to do, and now I've kind of just found myself in a place where, you know, I can offer all of these things out, you know, and this is for everybody. It's not just for people that have got money to spend on personal development, because there's heaps of free content as well. So get into it.
There's something for everybody, isn't there, really, which is great. And I've learned a lot about starseeds from watching your videos on starseeds, and again, you just make them really informative, but they're short enough for you not to kind of like, you know, lose your attention, sort of thing. So which I think is great, because not everybody's got 2 hours, have they, to sit and listen to something. So yeah, I follow you on Facebook, and often because of the time difference, when you're on a live like you were this morning, you know, it's 5 o'clock your time, but I'm just having my morning coffee, so it's great, you know. So just one last thing I want to say is, because I bought a numerology report from you, which was about your numerology life path, ruling number and everything, but also that did go into the starseed galactic sort of heritage, and I found that was brilliant. And so you do that personally for each person, isn't it? And it's a really amazing price. So can you just quickly talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we must have done over 500 of those since COVID started. And it was weird because it was almost like as soon as we got shut down, all of a sudden, like those starseed numerology reports went through the roof. And it was like everybody was obviously starting to question, what the hell's going on? Who am I? And rah, rah, rah. And so it was like, oh my God, I was like saying to Mark, what is going on? Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to get through. So like I've taught Mark how to create the reports now as well. So he helps me with them because they're all handwritten, they're not computer generated. So I basically work on a person's date of birth, and I look at all of their influences, their birth name and their name chart and their birth chart, their peak years of maturity, which are through the pyramids, which dates back to Atlantis. It goes into all of their color influences as well through the color mirrors. So that information's in there. And then I look at the position of their sun at the time that they're born, which gives me their starseed origin. So where their soul originated from after it left source consciousness, so whether that's the Pleiades or Arcturus or Orion or, Antares, wherever. And then it goes through the traits of those starseeds and a link to the video on YouTube as well. So it's a very well-rounded, it's almost like a life roadmap that can help you navigate through the emerging golden age,
And how much do you charge for that?
Well, they're only 59 Australian dollars. So we've kept them affordable for people because we want people to get the information. So, it's like...
I don't know what that is in you. Do you know what that is in pounds?
I think it's £33.
33. I mean, that's great. I mean, you can't go out for a meal for that in the UK.
I know, exactly.
So would highly recommend people kind of give it a go, because you're not going to get it back and think, no, that doesn't relate to me at all. It will. And you'll be like, oh my God.
I know, it's funny because the amount of people that then like refer their partners or their family, they want them done for their kids, because kids have got such different numerology to us, especially the ones like born after the year 2000, because they've got extra twos, and that and the two is feminine. So that's why the new generation are a lot more intuitive, they're a lot more sensitive,
heart-led.
Heart-led, they're beautiful, absolutely, and they're androgynous as well. And it makes me feel really proud, that they've come in to do this work. And the rainbows in particular, they're just beautiful. They just have to be, and they change everything.
I think despite of the outside 3D look of where we're going, I think for anybody that is following a more intuitive, heart-led path, it is a really exciting time to be alive, and there is a lot to be, looking forward to. And I think, all of this kind of multidimensional quantum healing, whether it's color, sound, numerology, astrology, is just going to grow and grow and grow. And and thank you, Hayden, for the part that you're playing in it. You've really helped me on my path, and I know that you help lots and lots of people around the world. So I'm really grateful for you taking time out of your day and coming to talk to me today.
It's fine, I love talking to people about this stuff anyway. And it's just that I thank you very much for inviting me as well. Like I would always say yes. I'll just say yes and turn up.
Yeah. And if I become well-renowned spiritual teacher, you can say, oh yeah, I was one of her first interviews when she was just doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, when she had to edit the beginning.
Yeah. We won't talk about that.
No, we won't say anything.
Right, so I'm going to let you get on with your evening, and then I'm going to go and edit this and get it up for people to watch, because I'm really excited to share it with people. So thank you again, Hayden, and for anybody watching who has found any inspiration in this, then do get in touch with him, follow him, and are you doing a spot? Live long and prosper. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and join me again. Bye.
Bye.